Features.
Hello and welcome to the Boxing Features Review Show, the weekly series where I take a look at all the biggest fights that happen around the world. Before I start, make sure you hit that subscribe button for plenty more Boxing Features content coming to you multiple times every single week. So without further ado, let's get to the fights.
Boxing Features.
We start off with the MTK show on Friday night, and this one really impressed me. We had Maxi Hughes versus Hyland Jr. for the British title, and it was a really solid fight, fantastic performance from Maxi Hughes, and in the end it was a very controversial and confusing finish because it was weird because the ref thought Highland had touched down. He didn't. He said box on. I don't think Highland got the memo, to be fair. Turned away, and because the ref said box on, it was fair and game for Maxi Hughes. Maxi Hughes come and gave him a left hook from behind and knocked him out in round 8. So it ended up being a knockout in round 8. But then, absolutely fantastic performance from Lee McGregor in the main event of that Bolton show. He won the European title against GUERFI. As I said in the preview show, a really solid European level opponent, but he took him out in round 1. Those body shots were absolutely amazing. It was like McGregor saw early on that these big body shots that were just ripping into the lower body were having their toll on GUERFI, and he just didn't let him off, but he still took his time. It was an absolutely brilliant performance from Lee McGregor, and now I've always been a fan of Lee McGregor. I've always thought he was been absolutely fantastic, but it seems that under Ben Davison now, he can go levels and levels above. Activity please this year, but that's like everyone, just fingers crossed the pandemic allows that to happen. He said after the fight he's going to be on the undercard of Josh Taylor versus Jose Carlos Martinez, but let's just hope he is, and let's hope he's in with a solid opponent, because let's get him out 3-4 times this year, then next year he's going to be ready for a world title, and I'll back him against a lot of the heavy hitters. Even you look at the big names, even Anui, in a couple of years' time, that could be a fantastic fight. But up the Scots, well done Lee McGregor, well done MTK, really good show to kick off a decent weekend of boxing. We now go over to Russia, and Artur Beterbiev defended his WBC and IBF light heavyweight world championship against Adam DEINES, and I was impressed by Beterbiev. He showed me and reminded me how good he really is, and that pound for pound list is ever evolving at the minute. It's fight after fight, weekend after weekend. Last week we had Estrada and Chocolatito, two arguably pound for pound stars, and this week we had Beterbiev trying to get his way into everyone's pound for pound list again. He's maintained his 100% undefeated record, and he's also maintained his 100% knockout ratio. Absolutely fantastic. In the first round, he knocked DEINES down, and I thought, this night might not be going long at all. But in all fairness to DEINES, he come back, he fought a good solid fight, and then in the 10th round, after a toe-to-toe action, a short little cluster of toe-to-toe action, Beterbiev just landed one of those big shots and put DEINES down, and he was counted out. Round 10, stoppage for Artur Beterbiev. Let's have some more fights this year, please. Let's have some big fights. He's 36 years old. He isn't getting any younger. I want some big nights for Beterbiev. Heading over to the States on DAZN on Saturday night. It was fantastic. It was intriguing. It was all of the above. It was Vergil Ortiz Jr. versus Maurice Hooker. It was a huge step up for Vergil Ortiz. It was a chance to show that he could potentially be world class, and he passed that test with flying colours, in my opinion. His shot selection, his power, his boxing acumen, his movement was spot on against a fantastic opponent in Maurice Hooker. It was brilliant to watch, and it was brilliant to see a new superstar of world boxing become unleashed, and I can't wait for what is next for Virgil Ortiz Jr. He got the knockout in round 7. That is 17 wins, 0 losses, 0 draws, all 17 wins coming by way of knockout. This welterweight division it dipped a bit, and now it's building back up. The depth is fantastic. It's not just Crawford and Spence up there anymore with maybe Sean Porter around that. There's a whole host of names who he could fight. I look to see who I think he could fight next as another step up before he fights that elite level in a Spence or a Crawford. I would love to see him fight maybe Kavalauskas, Urgas, or David Avanesian. I think that's that step up, that top 10 heading into top 5, and if he beats them showing his class like he did against Hooker, because Hooker bought a fight, he really did. At some points I thought, oh, Hooker's looking tasty here, but then Ortiz just showed that he's a level above a former world champion in Maurice Hooker, who is still in his prime, don't forget. It was absolutely fantastic. Only 22 years of age, brilliant. Virgil Ortiz Jr, he's not a prospect anymore. He's world class. Last but certainly not least, it was the big UK Sky and Matchroom show this weekend. It was a chance for another British fighter to become a world champion. In this case, it was Lawrence Okolie for the vacant WBO Cruiserweight World title against Coley Glowacki. And I'll take you through the show, first of all. Eddie Scotney and Ramla Ali performed really well. Two female fighters who are now 2-0. They look really good. I said Bradley Ray versus Lee Cutler could have potential to be a little tasty. Well, Bradley Ray shut Lee Cutler up. He shut down the whispers of it being a great fight because he knocked Lee Cutler out in the first round. That was his performance of his career. That has catapulted him into television fights now. Eddie Hearn always said with these small fights that he's giving opportunities, the winner stays on, and that's what you want to do. You want to create buzz around your name, and you can't. There's no other better way than doing it with a round 1 stoppage. Then you had Chris BILLAM-SMITH. Chris BILLAM-SMITH was really looking for the knockout against a very game and seasoned Vasil DUCAR. He didn't get a knockout, but he done everything, but he performed really well. I was really impressed by Chris BILLAM-SMITH, and they're talking about the Tommy McCarthy fight next. I'm really up for that. I think that's a really 50-50 fight, and it's one I can't wait for. Then Anthony Fowler got a round 3 stoppage over Jorge Fortea with a lovely crisp jab in the end. It was really dominant, classy performance from Fowler, who was showing new elements to his game, which he's been working with Shane McGuigan on for over a year now, really, and he's only had, I think, 3 fights with McGuigan, but he's really starting to show that he's not just that amateurish brawler. He's showing that he's got a lot more to his game now, and that will really help him when he steps back up to hopefully the rematch with Scott Fitzgerald and beyond. Joe Cordina, that was a strange one really, wasn't it, against Farouk Kubanov? I really thought Cordina performed fantastically. I think he had everything but knockout power in that fight. His class, he obviously got off a lot of ring rust because he's been extremely inactive. But I thought Cordina was slick, classy, shot selection was on point. But not all the judges saw it that way, and I wasn't scoring the fight, I must admit, but the judges gave it 96-95 to Cordina, very close. 96-96, a draw, wow, and 98-93, which I think is probably more like it. You could certainly give a couple of rounds to Korbanov, definitely, but I think the majority of the round, Cordina won with his slick head movement, his shot selection, dipping down to the body, a nice jab, really rounded performance, I thought, from Joe Cordina, and let's step it up. I think Cordina's one of these boxers who, as the calibre opponent steps up, his performances will step up to meet that level. And I really hope so, because I've always rated Joe Cordina, and I really think he can be a world champion. So let's see it now. Let's see him fight bigger names and high-level opponents, because I think it will really show his class in them fights. And the main event now. I was certainly worried. I was nervous for Okolie. I thought it was a fantastic fight between himself and Glowacki. But I was shocked. I'm still in shock how good Okolie was. You look at his performances against Isaac Chamberlain and Matty Askin. That's a different fighter, isn't it? That is a different fighter. So, fantastic work from Shane McGuigan there. Since they've linked up, that's been a partnership made in heaven as far as I'm concerned, because Okolie has improved paramount, and he comfortably beat up Glowacki in the end, didn't he? I think he showed his power, he showed his size, and he just used all of that to his advantage and didn't let Glowacki have any success whatsoever. And after the second or third round, I thought, Glowacki's going to need to do something here. But round after round, you're like, Okolie just got his number. Okolie's just bossing it. Okolie knows what he needs to do, and he's doing it. And it culminated in round six. He knocked out Glowacki with a fantastic right hand. And where does Okolie go now? Because he needs to unify. They want that Bradis fight, and with a performance like that, I back Okolie. I really do back Okolie to at least put in a fantastic performance at cruiserweight against anybody, and I'm making favourite against any cruiserweight right now. I think he's got that skill set to match his power and size now. He's such an improved fighter, and he's worked on his all-round game for his footwork, his lovely jab. That jab was spot on, by the way. And I'm only excited to see where Okolie goes now. And can he get that Bradis fight? Because if he can, then unify, maybe against Makaibu as well. If he gets undisputed and then moves up to heavyweight, surely that's a superstar, and we're going to be looking at another pay-per-view start in the UK, which I'm all for. I know pay-per-views, £20-25 is bad, but it's not bad in the grand scheme of things, because it means we have a pay-per-view star, because we don't have too many at the minute. We probably have Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, obviously your main two, and then you've got to rely on good fights. You can't just rely on that one name for a pay-per-view. So obviously we've got the pay-per-view been announced with Derek Chisora and Joseph Parker, which is a fantastic fight in itself, but it's a stack undercard, which allows it to be a pay-per-view. And I've seen some people even saying that shouldn't be a pay-per-view. I don't know. I think just about right. If they had another couple of fights on there, don't forget Katie Taylor, Tasha Jonas, Chris Eubank back out against Marcus Morrison. That should be a good run out for Chris Eubank Jr. and getting back in the British eye. And the other fight on that, how can I forget? That is Dimitri Bivol versus Craig Richards, which is an opportunity of a lifetime for a British fighter in Craig Richards. So I'm looking forward to that sort of pay-per-view. But, as I said, if Okolie keeps winning, he keeps performing like that, decent personality as well. He's got that rap out. I don't know about the rap, but he's got that out. That's certainly something. He could potentially be a pay-per-view star one day. And he's a young man. He's got so much, I want to say so much potential still, because I feel like there's a whole nother part to his game that he's yet to unlock, and that will just come with more work with Shane McGuigan. I cannot wait for it. Really solid weekend of boxing once again. Next week, another great week of boxing. Heavyweight rematch, Alexander Povetkin versus Dillian Whyte 2. Cannot wait for that. 2 BT Frank Warren shows. Cannot wait for that. Join me next week. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Friday preview show, Monday review show, boxing features. It's all happening here. And once again, thanks for watching.